Welcome everyone to the Blueprint for Peace for Humanity, Day 9. This is the afternoon session for Friday, July 14th, 2017. And my name is Rick Crammond. This is a production of the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute. And I don't think we're going to have Mr. Keshe with us for this session, but we are going to continue with our what we left off with at the last session about an hour ago, and with the general theme of kind of goes along with what I'm phrasing as ask not what the Keshe Foundation can do for you, but what you can do for the Keshe Foundation, or for yourself, perhaps, is another way to look at it. And I think part of that is changing ourselves from a receiving entity to a giving entity. And part of that might be giving of our time, giving of our attention, giving of our knowledge. And some people, it's a giving of their money in terms of donations and whatnot. So everyone has different ways that they can give, and we all have different ways we can receive as well. And as Mr. Keshe has said many times, and others in the teachings say, you have to give so that you can receive. And if you make the cup empty, then it'll be filled as a natural process. So in that light, maybe we can carry on with today's chat here, and perhaps we can look at some ways that people can contribute more. Just before the broadcast, we were discussing a little bit about this, and it was mentioned, for example, there's the Keshe Foundation forum and the Keshe Foundation community site, which need more participation. They need more people interacting with them in order to stimulate others and get the information out there through the different areas that can be discussed according to the topics and so on in these various sites. So that's just one way that people that may not have been contributing before and are wondering, what can I do? I can't do anything. Well, maybe you'll have some piece of information that somebody else is looking for, and just because you happen to connect in the forum or some other media place, maybe on Facebook or whatever, then people appreciate having that piece of information or your experience of a certain aspect of the teaching and so on. So there's different avenues is the point, different avenues that people can use as an entry into the giving back to the Keshe Foundation and to connect with others that are involved in this. Okay, somebody else would like to say something about that?
Well, I could pull up the Wiki site just to show that.
Sure, that's a good idea.
And there you have it. This is kfwiki.com. And it starts out with a preface and has some links to various portions of the page. And it's growing. This will be a community website that people can contribute to, as with any other generic wiki site. And the manager of this, I believe, is Klaus Priller.
Do you want to walk us through a few aspects of the site there, maybe? Yes.
Yeah, sure. The links are a little bit funny. This is the first page at kfwiki.com. And if I click that first link, category, KF Foundation, you get something.
Just to clarify, it's .org, not .com.
Oh, yeah, right. It's kfwiki.org. Excuse me. Yeah, and clicking the links takes you to funny pages. But there are ways to navigate through this site, such as all categories. Actually, you just have to fumble around until you find what you're looking for right now.
We don't see your mouse or any screen changing if you're doing anything.
Yes.
Really? You don't?
It's not changing.
Okay, you see it there now?
Oh, now plasma energy kicked in.
Okay, yeah. So that was one of the places I just went to. And if I try to get back to home, I guess I could do kfwiki.org again. It's kfwiki.org. And the links are kind of funny. Can you still see it? Okay, yes, you can. So I'm going to click one of these main links again. So plasma technology for energy. I'm going to click that, and it gives me, it basically looks like one page. And you can read that. And I go back and I'm going to click plasma technology for agriculture, and I've got 3 pages. And so that's the way to navigate this particular website. You go back to the beginning and click one of these links, and then you have the pages that are in it down here. So if I look at zinc oxide type GANs, I can click that. For the production, you need a zinc plate or a coil, and so on and so forth. This will be updated with the latest and greatest information as it becomes available and can find its way into the page. And many people can sign up to be editors or to deliver content to the page. And I really don't know very much about it, except that I'm an editor now. How about that?
Right on, Mark. That's great. Is there anything Vince or somebody else would like to add about this while we're going through?
Yeah, you can always request an account via the top right there, and that will go through the process so that we can approve you, and then you can start adding to the knowledge. Now, when you make a page, it won't be approved right away until we can go through it and verify some, but you can see the page even though it hasn't been approved. There's a note at the top that you can see if you want to go to just the main page, Mark. You see it says at the top, it says this is the approved revision of this page as well being the most recent. So you can always see when the page has changed or if the page has not been approved, and then also see the changes that have been made that have not been approved yet. And you can also edit that page to put in your own experiences.
Wow.
I see the the label of the page mentions it in English. Have you got it translated into other languages?
The other languages will be coming online as the Wiki family expands. So each individual language will have their own wiki.
You can see in the most recent articles, there seem to be pages with German or something. Is that?
Yeah, people have put in some translations of some articles. They haven't necessarily been approved, but we have allowed them to stay in there simply because we don't have the other wikis open yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm going to click one. Okay.
So there you can see that you can't see it, but it says no revisions for this page has been approved. However, you can view the most recent version there, and that still is you're able to see it without. Now this hasn't been the approved version, but you can still see the changes that were made.
Yeah, that's great. So this is coming, probably.
It's taken many hours to this point.
If you just actually go to kfwiki.org. No, kfwiki.org.
Without the EN in front of it, Mark.
Oh. There you go.
Other languages will appear here.
I haven't clicked this link yet.
That's the main Keshe Foundation site.
Uh-huh. Nice.
So yes, the languages will appear on that page as they come online.
And while we're on the website here and seeing the new website and so on, is there a demand, Vince, for other people to work on the website or to work in the background for other graphics or other jobs? Should we encourage people to sign up as volunteers for those kinds of jobs?
You can always put in your application if you're a graphics designer. We can always use your talents for showing the technology in a graphical way so more people can understand. Even if you can't speak English, a picture can mean 1,000 words in 1,000 different languages.
Yes, and we do have an animation team that they could be part of if they do pass the security and are accepted as part of that team and so on, or can contribute to it. So, and that's, people can do that through, it used to be the support button, and how do they get to it now on this website?
I don't believe there's a link yet for it on this site, but you can always go to support.keshefoundation.org.
Okay, I guess we need to get that up soon. Be a good idea. Okay. Anything? Anybody else want to add anything about the? We can just keep going through the website. It's a good idea too.
They're currently working on something awesome for here.
With all those tools, I guess something of the physicality.
Yeah, as we share the new knowledge of the electron really being inside as the heart of the neutron, physics is going to change, and we hope it all changes at once around the world, and then we all start co-creating together and don't have disruptions that are unnecessary. We know how to make the plasma. We know how to energize the plasma by spinning it one way, or de-energize it by spinning it the other way, or putting one spinning one way and another spinning the other way and seeing the gradient between the two. But we need peace. Peace on Earth is the only thing that works throughout the universe. GANs and nano. Something awesome is coming here. We have all kinds of public teachings. The best place to start is probably the kids.
Don't click that.
Oops, oops, I did. Did I leave the whole thing?
Why was he not supposed to click that? That was the private section.
He's already in a Zoom meeting.
That's right.
I would leave the Zoom, I guess.
Yes, he'd be kicked out.
Right.
Okay. Were you done sharing, Mark, or are you going to reshare there?
I'll reshare if I can find it again. I have too many open windows, I guess.
Maybe we should move on with peace.
Right.
With peace in which way, Vince?
We had a bunch of people that were promoted before the break, and I'm sure they wanted to speak.
Okay. Okay, who would like to speak? Well, free.
Oops, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No.
No, I was trying to speak, but it turned out my mic was mute. Yeah, let's look at peace again, because really this is the blueprint for peace. And it is in our hands. And everybody who's listening now, it's in your hands too. And I think this is what's often forgotten, is that we're always waiting for someone else to do it instead of ourselves. And again, this is, I believe, what Mr. Keshe is really making a point of, is that it's in humanity's hands. And right now, we are representatives of humanity, and our best efforts to continue to sit with images of the various world leaders, of the religious leaders, of our own families, of anything that we need to elevate the soul of as we're elevating our own. So I think that the 1-minute sessions that were originally part of every hour we were going to do a meditation, and it more or less worked for those of us who did it anyway. But I think a concerted effort where a moment, 1 minute of silence on airtime seems so much like we need to say something, but it is in our Our voices are our souls speaking, but when we are in silence and sending loving energy or whatever energy, joyful, positive energy to everything, it really changes the dynamics. So could I invite us to start right now, this next minute, just to sit radiating love with no words, but just that feeling of love to everybody who's listening now or in the future, and to everything out there. And just, yes, that's perfect. To the world leaders, I will stop right now.
Okay, I think we covered our minute of silence there.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Libby. That was a great idea.
It's like Mr. Keshe says, when the conditions change, we change. And I think that's the reminder. We are the creator of the conditions around us. So the more often we can fall in love with everything, those conditions will just change and we'll become electrons flying everywhere because we're using love, honoring each other. I just want to express my great, great gratitude to every knowledge seeker out there. We are making a difference. It's not always visible. Keep up the good work and take action. Paul was right when he said we have to take action every day, every moment. And maybe it can be an action of love, an action of reaching out to another. Just listening to someone is sometimes the greatest gift we can give.
And I find myself looking at these world leaders, and you see their faces and their body postures and whatnot, and they all look like sort of caricatures or almost cartoon characters of what they are. And at the same time, I ask myself, can I give unconditional love to all of these world leaders, knowing their, the history and the governments they represent and the forces they represent and so on. And the fact that I don't think any of these countries signed on to the World Peace Agreement for nuclear arms that was just signed on by 121 countries in last week. So can we give them unconditional love and actually give from our soul to these entities, and essentially flood them with that kind of support. Some of them will be able to handle it. Some of them, well, they might have issues with it. But in any case, what better way to you know, it's a way of affecting a change without having to go out in the streets and protest and so on. As Mr. Keshe said the other day, that this is an evolution, not a revolution. And in a way, it's, we learn to elevate from ourselves. We change ourselves and start to realize our own power in a way, which is the power of giving this love energy. That's probably the only power we have, in a sense, in other than the physicality stuff. So it's a difficult task to give, so that to give unconditionally to all these leaders without having any conditioning and preconceptions and all the responses we would get by seeing these different faces normally, to just accept them all and give them from our soul. And whatever happens will happen, but that will, if we do it, then we actually feel it go out as an energy or as a field. And they may or may not accept that or feel it or know it, but it will make a change.
If we come back to thinking of humanity as one huge neutron, and so we're really actually loving ourselves because they are parts of us. They're all us, part of us anyways, as the neutron. And if we're changing the fields, the conditions of this neutron by just filling it with incredible, incredible love, they cannot but convert themselves or leave because they can't convert. And either way, that will bring peace. So the more love we can generate within ourselves outward, the more we will and are making a huge impact. I'm so grateful to be here.
Peggy says, yes, we can support them to do good, even with all the bad in the past. I start my thinking of them as children. They weren't always world leaders. Work on their beings when they were children. Then that can manifest in the now. Light, love, and peace. Well, it's funny that that came up, because I would, just before that, when I was looking at them, I started to see them as like children. They're like almost little puppet characters, and that we could actually have compassion for, because they're in a a tough position with, they've got all the focus of the world on them, and they're probably trying to do some good in the world, but they've also got all these connections that they're forced to, they feel forced to give into and to be influenced by and to take into consideration. So, but the kind of that unconditional love energy doesn't matter about all that stuff, and it bypasses all that and goes directly to that core seat of the soul, you could say, that everyone has. maybe that's what needs to come out. It's time for that, our hole in the brain to go inside out. Turning our code inside out. Okay, more about that concept, perhaps, of the neutron and electron, proton. Anybody have some comments about that? Can add to it?
Well, I'd like to understand it deeper than I think I understand it, but I know that I have. So I thought the electron was the soul of the neutron, and Mark thought it was the heart. And are the heart and the soul, in effect, really one and the same? It's the question that came for me. So anybody have more clarity? And it's maybe just a label, but for me, the label of soul is enormous and heart is more physical. So I'd like to understand the difference and how I may have misunderstood.
Well,
thank you.
Yeah, it's a good point, Libby. And a lot of people use that term heart. And I was confused for many years with this idea. I'm thinking, well, how can people say that I feel in my heart? The heart is this organ that's, you know, pumping away. And how can they say that the heart is, you know, that's the deepest part is the heart and so on. But I look at it differently than the physical organ. And when people say heart, they mean whatever is the deepest, or at least the feeling place for them. If not the deepest, then at least that place of the deepest feeling, the most passion or emotion, you could say. And it's, many people use that as sort of interchangeable to the soul, or the center, that, you know, essence center and so on. And I think part of that confusion is that some entities are more feeling entities. They move with their heart as the leading sense organ, you might say, and others are more, say, not mental, but more mindful, let's say, and are using a different perception. So they might not think so much of heart, but more might think in terms of soul, like the seat of the soul in the brain sort of thing, or their third eye, or other terminologies. So it sort of depends. Like if you walk into a room and it's a place you've never been in before and everything is fresh and new, what is your first impressions? Is it from your heart, or is it from your soul, from your mind, from your nose, from, you know, sensing or sensation? Different folks have different ways of perceiving. So perhaps that's part of where some of that confusion comes in. Any other ideas on that?
But isn't our perception also based on our emotions? Rather, well, I guess some of our perceptions are based on our. This is where I do find my own lack of clarity still between the emotional and the soul aspect.
I think this is something that we do need to try to clarify more in terms of what is an emotion, what is a feeling, what is the difference between something that's soul related and something that's physicality related in terms of you know, these ideas and so on. And there are systems or ways of thinking, or what used to be called schools of thought, or ancient mystery schools, or other ways of approaching how to define what or how to clarify what those things might be. And perhaps we need to get into that. I'm not clear on that. Sometimes it starts to be more dividing than integrating. So, but there is a thought that being able to define things exactly, having the language that we all commonly understand, like we have language now that we commonly understand. We know what we're talking about when we talk about, I don't know, CO2 GANs or something like that. So, and we have the whole language to describe the process of what we're making, and we know what a nano coating is and so on. Once we get, you know, involved with this the lingo of the Keshe technology and whatnot, but we haven't really penetrated the lingo, or what you could say the science of the soul, or the science of the you know, the essence or the essential parts. And what's the difference between the soul or essential self and the physicality and so on, and what are the activities of the physicality and what are the activities of the soul, and do they talk to each other, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of room for deeper understanding, I think, in those topics.
Yeah, it seems like the physicality talks so much that the soul can't get a word in edgewise sometimes.
Well, that's exactly right. So we have devices, or there are devices that have been used and are used to get the physicality to shut up, basically, and that's what allows the soul or essence to come through. For example, if you look at it in terms of brainwave frequencies, we have our beta brainwave frequency, which is the higher frequencies, probably over, I think, 10 or 12 or 13 or something like that. There's alpha, that's from around 8 to 12 hertz. And there's theta brainwave frequency, which is around, I think, 5 to 8 hertz, and the deep delta, which is below that. So those are like the four main brainwave frequencies. And it turns out if we're busy in our busy beta brain, which is dealing with the day-to-day activities and thinking and worrying and calculating and figuring and anticipating and associative brain activities and so on, all this busy brain stuff is in that higher range. And if that's active, then the lower frequencies of the theta brainwave frequency, which is more for the subconscious and perhaps the more psychic and you know, instant communications and that kind of thing, would tend to occur more in the theta or alpha brainwave frequencies. So, but they're not able to manifest while the other, I think about it now, it's our thinking cap. Remember when you're a kid in kindergarten, the teacher would say, now put on your thinking cap so you can figure out this, you know, 1 and 1 is 2 kind of problem here. Put on our thinking caps. And that was supposed to, that's essentially what happens, is we're taught to put on these thinking caps. Our thinking caps actually interfere or cloak the essential self and its lower brainwave frequencies that's natural to that realm. So we have to, there are ways and means of stopping the busy brain, you know, meditation and different kinds of experiences, and perhaps different kinds of music or other shocks that shock us out of our ordinary thinking, busy brain activity, and all of a sudden we're left with the theta type brainwave frequencies, which is a whole different ball game. There are those that can voluntarily control their brain waves, and usually those are people are called gurus or shamans or some psychologists or other people that are trained themselves to be able to think differently literally in terms of recording their brain waves will actually be in a different whole different frequency than ordinary people that, you know, are busy in their lives, not pondering whether their brain waves are one range or another. And we normally just go through our lives, and it's not something that we consider whether we're in a certain state or not. And that state could be important in terms of allowing our more peaceful nature to come forward, perhaps. Anyway, that's just my opinion on that. Anybody else have something to say? I don't want to.
Seems like every time we turn around, we're seeing something that has limited us to stay inside our thinking cap.
Just about everything in our culture and society is designed to keep us within that, except for certain things like advertising, which is designed to get us snapped into the essential self and more sort of helpless and suggestible state. And then they program with whatever sales product they're trying to jam into your brain through the advertising and so on. So that's where advertising is essentially like black magic. It's a way of they've learned how to open up, to get rid of the beta brain waves, to open up the theta brain waves, and to put in suggestive thoughts into our brains at that point, which is, you know, basically it's a kind of a nasty way of doing things, but that's essentially what advertising is. It's a way of influencing. It's all about influence, and people that are hypnotists know that that's a technique. Is essentially we get hypnotized by the music or by the images that are presented to us in such a way, and the subliminal images and so on, and they work on the subconscious level. And if we can learn to be conscious of our subconscious, then we're conscious of those influences, and then we can, because it's all becomes more conscious and voluntary, then we can do something about it. We can choose to not listen, or we can see them for what they are, rather than being influenced by those images.
Pointed out to me recently that my puppy dog doesn't understand the negative statements. And it occurs to me that anytime I say a negative statement, I'm not hearing the negative part within my conscience either.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. The way I understand it is that to the essential self, to our soul or our inner parts, it doesn't understand no. It's either full speed ahead, like, yes, let's, go for it. Yes, I'm all for it. I can do anything. Or it's neutral. It's there's no anti. It's either unconditional love or neutral. There's no hate, because there's no dichotomy in that sense. There's only unconditional love or absence of unconditional love. And there's no hate. There's no opposite that way. There's only unconditional love or absence of it. The absence of that unconditional love ends up with symptoms that we call hate, or we call, lack of compassion or things like that. But the way I understand it is, it's to that essential self, which is the source of this unconditional love. It it doesn't have that option of hate. Like a kid doesn't really have the option of hate. It's a young child before they get conditioned to our society and to their siblings punching them in the arm and things like that.
So I've started to think that positive speak is very much worthy of being paid attention to, and all of the negativity, like all the disinformation that's focused on anybody, is gotta be wrong.
Well, I don't know if wrong is the right thing, because then you start getting into right and wrong. It's more a matter of right or ignored, or right and neutral, kind of, because otherwise we start to get involved in attractions and repulsions of the images and words that are coming out, and sounds and so on. And once that gets keyed in, then we're no longer impartial, objective, and unconditional love.
Okay, so if I hear a lot of negative statements in a news broadcast, I can choose to not pay so much attention to it. And if
why would they be considered negative? In what sense are they negative to start with? If it's just if you're giving unconditionally, then what condition are you putting on that statement coming through at that time?
Yeah, I'm just trying to sort out what is the true news and what is the news that is
wouldn't the true news be I'm sort of grasping at something here, that if we are listening with unconditional love, then unconditional love means unconditional love. That is the condition put on it. It's unconditional. That means if you're listening with unconditional love, how could you have any possible negativity toward this, whatever sounds or images that are coming through at that time? Because you're giving to that situation. You're not receiving negativity in that particular. This is trying to do this as sort of a mind exercise here. I'm sort of pretending of coming from a unconditional love space, and there's no room for negativity because there's only unconditional love. So try me. I'm giving unconditional love. Everything's cool, no problem. Then all of a sudden, maybe from left field, a troll comes in and says, "You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're totally wrong." But it's okay, because I'm in that state of unconditional love. I can address that troll and just go, okay, you're under unconditional love too, and I don't, that insults or any what would normally be considered insults, we just pass through because we have no resistance to it. The unconditional love doesn't have resistance toward that. It has only acceptance and tolerance, and unconditional love would be the concept I'm trying to put through here.
So in traditional physics, neutrons are more important than protons.
More important. As
A neutron is a proton. I'm sorry, this is Alberto from the United States. A neutron is a proton and an electron. It's just dressed up to look as one unit.
Our traditional physics counts elements by the number of protons.
Mm-hmm. But we do have isotopes, though, with the neutrons, right? So you can have some isotopes of one element are actually heavier than another isotope of a different element, heavier or lighter than the element itself of another element.
So a periodic table that sequentially goes through the total number of protons and neutrons would be more encompassing.
Well, they're noted on most of the tables of elements.
And yet our focus is on the number of protons.
Yeah, it's because of I think it's because of the charge rather than the amount in terms of the total number being,
So
the total mass, let's say, being important.
So how does your soul let in the information that maybe it's more important to look at the total mass or the number of neutrons that are combined with protons and electrons than just single protons?
Could you say that again so I can reponder it?
How do you let your soul consider that focusing on the number of protons is not as valuable as focusing on the total number of atomic mass units, counting the neutrons and the protons?
Well, maybe
Mark,
it's...
Go ahead.
Well, I was thinking that... Let me just get one thought out. Perhaps it's a matter of which direction are we looking at? Are we looking at the unfolding of the creation, you might say, from the neutron to the proton and electron, which would be like the decay of the neutron, which the neutron would be the original or principal particle, let's say, or principal energy, principal maggrav field, and it breaks down into the proton and electron. Well, that is the natural flow, you might say, of time on a, if you're looking at it on a time scale of a couple of billion years, then the neutron might break down into a proton, electron, or whatever it is, a billionth of a second or something as well. So that would be one direction. But what if we look at the other direction, back to source instead of the creation? And back to source would be looking back toward the neutron. So if the proton looked back toward the neutron, or got together with an electron and became a neutron again, that would be like going back to source rather than following the natural flow of time in one direction. So maybe we have an option of going with the flow, or inverting our attention and going backwards in toward the source of attention, to the source of our existence.
Yeah, I'm suggesting that the focus on the proton is a little bit disingenuous, because if we look at a neutron that has just ejected an electron and becomes a proton, and that proton is swirling around and is going to concentrate its toroidal energy into the center and create a new electron.
A new electron. Wasn't the electron created from the center of the neutron? Are you saying another electron would be created from the center of the proton?
Yeah, the shell that's left after the electron is ejected will circle itself and so bring in energy and consolidate that energy into its center and create a new electron. And then it'll be a neutron again. So the proton ejects, the neutron ejects an electron, and then the remaining proton regenerates itself as a neutron.
I didn't get that. Is that what other people get?
This is what we've been taught in the last few days. Yes, that's correct.
But I got to.
It becomes a neutron, an actual neutron, not just the proton becomes a neutron with another electron. Is that correct?
I'm not sure that that's quite a new. Go ahead.
The way I understood it, is that once the electron leaves, the proton, through all the environment, gathers what it needs to create another electron within itself, and then becomes a neutron again. But that's only what I understood.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I understood that too, and I listened to it about 5 times to make sure.
Right on. Okay, well, it does make sense.
Excuse me, this is good.
Go ahead.
Rick, I think this would help to demonstrate it if you can draw it, or, I can draw part of it, what I understand, and then we can add that knowledge. And if we master this, if we completely understand this, I have a suggestion of how we could all write just that explanation in our own languages and post it. You can use your blog or wherever, community website, but in our language, and we have taken a first step of teaching. And we can do that before Monday. And I can, let me share screen and show if you let me. I want to show. Okay, thank you. I want to show what I have done before. Using my website. Am I sharing my website?
Yes.
Okay, now this I have used in my language, and this is a way we can teach the electron-neutron division. I have used this website written in my language, Gikuyu, for the big things that have been taught, like cancer solution. I put it in the website in my language. So it's out there. People will read it now, and if they don't read it now, they will read in future because it says. And then I also, this is the DC MAGRAV I had covered. So this is one way, because it's very easy to blog. People may have blogs all over the place, or some other forum. Media, I don't know exactly what. But through the web, if we had a start, for example, and now I will stop sharing, because I have shown that example. Now come to how do I bring about the whiteboard?
Just go to your share screen.
Oh, share screen again, and then? And
select whiteboard.
Okay, whiteboard. What I understood, Mr. Keshe, what we've just been discussing about the neutron division, I understood that he thought if this were a neutron, well, and he drew something like that, and it has a center. This center is the fields, yeah? When this neutron divides into a proton and an electron, this is my understanding, and I might be wrong. So from the fields, because the center is not empty, that in fact you demonstrated this, Rick, you showed your core, the dot, the dot in the center, which looks empty, but it's not really empty. Those are the fields. That's where the very strong fields are. And this is what divides into an electron, according to what Mr. Keshe explained yesterday. And this is the new science now. This is the new discovery that has not been known. So, but the matter itself, because this is the fields only, it breaks into electron, but the matter itself, from here, this matter, becomes the proton, yeah? The proton. So the proton is from the matter, but the neutron, the electron, is from the fields. That's why he said, in terms of mass, proton is heavier, but in terms of field strength, the electron is way stronger. Yeah. So he says, out of this knowledge, just knowing this is what has not been known. But then what happens to the proton and electron? They came from here. Then when they develop here, they will be again, they will have the same structure. They will have their center core also. And then, and that's the proton, let's say. And this will be the electron, which will also have its center core. And now, this develops again over time with the fields of the environment, becomes a neutron. Yeah? And I believe, because this came from the fields, and I'm not very certain about this, I might have to listen, because the electron came from the fields of the proton, then gets energy and interaction of the fields and becomes a proton. And if it becomes a proton, then the proton, the new proton, again becomes a neutron. So the cycle continues. There is a continuous creation of, division of proton to electron, neutron to proton and electron, and then these again constitute themselves back to this original neutron. So this process is continuous. And what I have drawn here, there might be mistakes, I haven't checked, but that is the new science. That is the new chapter. The new chapter.
I understood that the electron emerged and left the shell back there, which then regenerated a new central portion.
Both this one regenerates again, but even the ones that split, the proton and the electron, also regenerate back to neutron. That's how this is a complete cycle. It never stops. It never stops, according to my understanding, and this can be checked. But if we just understand this part from the recording of yesterday's teaching, and then write it in our own languages from the transcribed material, I don't know when it will be ready, but if it's ready before this weekend, we can use that directly, what Mr. Keshe explained, only this part, which constitutes the new chapter that Mr. Keshe has written. And he said that if he were not Iranian, he would get the Nobel Prize, which, but now he wouldn't even accept that because of its history. It came from the guy who came up with dynamite that has caused a lot of killings around the world. So the most important point is, if we understand this and translate it in our languages, just this part from the transcribed material of yesterday's teaching, then we spread it across the world. And this could be just a simple paragraph, but in our languages, so that the new science, the new discovery that was taught yesterday, this major new chapter in the world of physics, then spreads across the world in all languages over one weekend. That's my suggestion.
Gatwa, I would just modify what you said by observing that the shell of the neutron that's left does not have an electron re-enter it. No, the shell of the neutron that's left after the electron leaves regenerates the center, but it doesn't have an electron come into it.
I didn't say it comes into it. I said this one regenerates itself into neutron on its own. But what leaves, after the division of proton and electron, these electrons continue, the proton becomes a new neutron. And the electron itself, in my understanding, becomes a new proton. Then the new proton becomes a new neutron. And I could be wrong, but that's my understanding. I never said that this one here gets the electron back. No.
Right. And logically, to me, that electron that's ejected would create a new center and become a baby neutron. But that's just my opinion.
Yes, it could be. Yeah, that's where I said I wasn't very sure whether it becomes a neutron or it becomes a proton first and then becomes a neutron. Because I'm sure the proton becomes a neutron.
If the electron generates a center or a soul and becomes a baby neutron, then we're seeing a fractal.
Okay. Yeah, you could be right. But that will be found in the recordings because Mr. Keshe explained it anyway. But in any way,
I don't think that'll be.
It's not so obvious. But whatever we can get from the recordings of yesterday's teaching, only for this part, and we actually translate into our languages. And for those who speak English, they can write it somewhere in their websites, I don't know, their blogs, wherever, so that we have in one weekend a lot of written materials in so many languages across the world. And then we will have taken the first step of teaching that Mr. Keshe has always wished us to do. And this will be seen across the world. Thank you very much. That was my suggestion.
Thank you.
You're all welcome.
Okay, thank you, Gatwa. I think we have to. We'll have to consult with the transcription on that and try to. Maybe we should review the video at that point too, and try to confirm our concepts on that. Okay.
And it can be part of teachings in future where we show, everyone shows what they did. So that that will appear again in YouTube, in the teachings of that day. So we'll be teaching the whole world. That would be a very good first step, in my opinion. Thank you very much.
Very good.
Oh, hello, Rick. Would it be possible if I say something? This is Alberto from the United States.
Okay, go ahead.
About half an hour ago, Libby was saying we were talking about the heart and the soul and emotions, and I don't want us to get too far away from that before I had a comment I wanted to make on that. And it's that when we think of emotions, we often think of the heart. But emotions are really the soul. The soul is our emotions. So another thing, I'm not going to go into depth on that. But another thing is our bodies are very much like a neutron. The core, our body core, is the proton, and our head is the electron. Yeah, remember that little in the kids' workshop where Mr. Keshe explains it, and he says that one of the kids goes, "I'm a neutron, I'm a neutron." So our head represents or is the electron. Our body, our core, if you take away the legs and the arms, our body core is the proton. Okay, sorry to go back so far into our discussion. I just didn't want to interrupt you guys. Go ahead, Rick.
I'm not sure where I'm going ahead to at this point, but
sorry about that.
Okay, so where does that leave us?
Okay, well, I'll jump in just because if I can
find
a thread.
Take control of the rudder of the ship,
for a second or two. Alberto, so you're saying that our body and it is the proton and our head is the electron. So our heart is in our body and our soul is in our brain. So is the brain or soul the electron and the heart the proton? I
would have to say that the brain is part of the electron and the heart is part of the proton.
Okay.
I'm trying to go by what Mr. Keshe has. You see the beauty of Mr. Keshe's
sorry, go ahead.
The beauty of Mr. Keshe's teachings. I've been studying different philosophies, different schools of philosophies for many years. Mr. Keshe has put it all together in a very beautiful way. It's to me, it's like poetry, physics, and religion, and all the science is all put together in a very, very musical, beautiful, flowing way. And this is one of the things that he explained very beautifully, is that our heads are the electron and our body is the proton. So we are a neutron. The heart itself, proton? No, I don't think so. It's part of the proton. What do you say, Libby?
That works for me. I really like it. Thank you. I see that, and it resonates quite sweetly.
And it's always good to remember that what we have learned, even in the 9 days, past 9 days, Mr. Keshe said that it has not been taught in the last 3 million years. So this is a lot of knowledge he's taught.
Yes.
Even yesterday's, just yesterday, what he taught yesterday has not been taught in the last 3 million years. So this is amazing knowledge that we have gathered, and we should make very good use of it by teaching others, so that it will never be forgotten, and mankind will never be at war again. Because he also said that if you understand that, and the electron especially, which comes from the fields, then you understand that is the basis of beyond the speed of light travel. And that's very important. How do we get to that? How do we control it so that we use it for our travel? Perhaps Rick knows something. Perhaps Amen would like to say something. Thank you very much.
Well, I can say that Willie says we'll get the neutron division part transcribed this evening and put it out everywhere we know so it can be translated by everyone. So that would be useful.
I can play that portion of the video if you would like.
Oh, and post it, please, to wherever we can get access to it.
Yeah, it's July 12th a.m. starting at about 51 minutes, and I'll just go ahead and start it.
Sure, go ahead. Let's play and watch it for a bit. Make sure you click the audio option on the screen share. John was just stating that it was hard to hear some of the things that you were showing us and presenting here and teaching because of the cutouts.
So what shall we do? Shall we go home and come back tomorrow? Maybe human race was not ready to hear that part.
Well, maybe we just have to work it through a little in more detail.
We have an unstable set today, and this is causing problem. With both systems, we have unstable condition. Maybe, as I said, man wasn't ready for decades and centuries. Maybe it's not ready yet again. What I have explained is that the process of the division of the neutron, for the first time we can explain, that is the center of neutron itself. As you look at the structure of the cores, rotating cores, which they have a center, and the fields, and then you have the matter states or the Ganser state. As by rotation you create a center, the way we have seen and we explained in the structure of the soul of the man, in the brain of the man. Now we understand the center of the neutron is the same, and he has a center, where by the change of the fields in his environment, then the center divides, and the balance of the energy, what is left here, becomes the proton, and what is in the center is electron, with a higher power that it can carry on with its random motion. In fact, if we look, we understand the whole three are the same. In the life of the man, when the blood circulation, which is surrounding the brain of the man, changes through the misfunctioning or stoppage of the heart, the environment changes and forces the release of the soul into a new dimension. So the creation of the soul and the division, or not the creation, the release of the soul from the central structure of the physicality of the man, the same way as a neutron division, which is electron and proton, is exactly the same. And then, as I explained, if you remember, some of us who did the test, creating deliberately a center core, a second core, and a third core, or we had a center core created in the middle, we have found some of our cores have disappeared, or we have lost them, we cannot find them. They have gone through the same process, where the field forces in the surrounding has forced the trajectory process. So in all three, the creation of the release of the solar man and the division of the neutron are in the same as with the cores, where we see the release of the inner core is all the same. Now we understand. But now once we understood this, and we can elevate the knowledge of the man, we can dictate on the direction of this trajectory, or on the direction of the release of what you call the electron. This gives man a new dimension in the world of physics, a new understanding, and this will be written in the books of physics as a new chapter, going further into the structure of the material, going further in the structure of the plasma technology. As I said, plasma technology is the next step after atomic and nuclear. Now we spoke with the fields, now we have to speak. When we say nuclear, it means we deal with the nucleus. Now we are going inside the nucleus, and we have parallels, so we can relate one to another. We can go from macro to micro. We can go from the brain of the man into the neutron structure and the man-made system, which confirms and complies with the same rules and regulations in the space. This is what, as I said, will shock the world of nuclear physics. For the first time, not only we say neutron is a plasma, electron is a plasma, proton is a plasma, we can show the birth of proton and electron. We can show how and where they are. In fact, it's the center itself which, due to the change in the surrounding, in the strength, gets released, and is in its release trying to find a new balance, it creates a new life for itself. And this comes back to be the same. That's why we see not much change in the size of the electron, proton and neutron. Because it's the center which has changed, and now this in rotation and the forces from this have to create a second process.
So that's the key right there. And I'll back it up a little and show that little part again.
And this will go on. Nuclear physics. For the first time, not only we say neutron is a plasma, electron is a plasma, proton is a plasma. We can show the birth of proton and electron. We can show how and where they are. In fact, it's the center itself which, due to the change in the surrounding, in the strength, gets released. And in its release, trying to find a new balance, it creates a new life for itself. And this comes back to be the same. That's why we see not much change in the size of the electron, proton and neutron. Because it's the center which has changed, and now this in rotation and the forces from this have to create a second process.
So they both create a second process, and I'll just play it one more time.
And this will go on. We can go from macro to micro. We can go from the brain of the man into the neutron structure and the man-made system which confirms and complies with the same rules and regulations in the space. This is what, as I said, will shock the world of nuclear physics. For the first time, not only we say neutron is a plasma, electron is a plasma, proton is a plasma. We can show the birth of proton and electron. We can show how and where they are. In fact, it's the center itself which, due to the change in the surrounding, in the strength, gets released. And in its release, trying to find a new balance, it creates a new life for itself. And this comes back to be the same. That's why we see not much change in the size of the electron, proton and neutron. Because it's the center which has changed, and now this in rotation and the forces from this have to create a second process. And this will go on. It's the same as the creation of life on this planet and the universe. But if we understand and we can dictate the direction of the flow of the release of even our own spaceship within the plasma which we created, where we make our craft to be the center with the massive field forces around it and dictating the release direction, we can travel the spans of universe beyond imagination of the mind.
Shall I stop there, or would you like me to continue?
Did you get what he just said? That is fascinating. He said our spaceship, we can build it to work just like the neutron does. And the neutron changes into a proton and electron because of the environmental fields. And it's always released from a certain direction. There's a certain part of the neutron that softens, and that's where the electron comes out. Now, when we surround our spaceship with these massive fields, we're talking about the relationship between a neutron and an electron is 1 to 2,000. That's probably the massive fields he's talking about. And if we can direct the direction in which the electron flows out of the neutron, we will have flight. Wow, that's fascinating. Okay, go ahead.
Oh yeah, and if we have spaceships within spaceships within spaceships, I'll go ahead and continue this.
But please.
And this is where we are going.
Mark, would you explain exactly what he meant, or whoever understood, when the electron leaves and creates a new life for itself? What is that new life? Another neutron?
Yeah, I think it's a baby neutron.
Okay.
I don't get that it is necessarily a neutron, but that it does have a center that it will again break down again. But I think it would be into smaller particles, not the same size one. But I'm not clear on that. So
right, and thus the fractal.
That's where I'm not very clear what the electron becomes when it's a new life.
Well,
that's not very clear.
That is possible, but also we have to remember that the size of the electron, the proton, and the neutron are regulated by the center of the unicos. And the very center is the plasma of an electron. So when we're talking about regeneration of these, of the neutron and the proton and the electron, I don't think that it's going to go any smaller than our pattern, which is set in the center of the unicos, or even in the center of our universe, for that matter.
Well, remember that our galaxy was split off from a larger, and our solar system was split off from a larger.
Don't forget you're thinking of mass or in a matter state. We have to think in an energy state. Energy
in terms of plasma, yes.
It has no size. It's the field strength.
Yeah. So when we're talking about the plasma, the size of the plasma is going to be regulated by the center, the pattern which is in the center of the universe. Now, when we're talking about regeneration, we have all these elemental magnetic fields floating around. They're going to be attracted to the proton and to the electron. And very possibly what's going to happen inside the proton and the electron, and this is just a thought, I'm not saying that this is the way it happens. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. What might be happening here is what happens with a planet. The planet, you know, when the majority of the magnetic fields flow out from the exit on top, which we call the North Pole, and they return back in through the South Pole. But when they come back in, it's more powerful. Or is it the other way around? When they come out, it's more powerful, right?
But you're on to something, because if I continue playing this one, you'll find that it splits off, and then joins back up with the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but,
okay, yeah, go ahead. But let's play it.
Wait a second. He said the proton, he will not stay as a proton. He will gain some. When he's gained field, then he will produce electron in the inside, and then it will change to neutron. Even if it stay for a million years, he will not be as a proton, and with the time he will gain his field from outside, and then he will be proton and electron, and then
exactly. Yes, go ahead.
Also, when the electron splits off, that shell of the proton can go and engulf a whole aircraft carrier and make it an entity. But,
yes.
But let me play the video.
Okay.
We can go from macro to micro. We can go from the brain of the man into the neutron structure and the man-made system, which confirms and complies with the same rules and regulations in the space. This is what, as I said, will shock the world of nuclear physics. For the first time, not only we say neutron is a plasma, electron is a plasma, proton is a plasma, we can show the birth of proton and electron. We can show how and where they are. In fact, it's the center itself, which, due to the change in the surrounding, in the strength, gets released. And in its release, trying to find a new balance, it creates a new life for itself. And this comes back to be the same. That's why we see a change in the size of the electron, proton and neutron, because it's the center which has changed. And now this in rotation, and the forces from this have to create a second process. And this will go on. It's the same as the creation of life on this planet and the universe. But if we understand and we can dictate the direction of the flow of the release of even our own spaceship within the plasma which we created, where we make our craft to be the center with the massive field forces around it and dictating the release direction, we can travel the spans of universe beyond the imagination of the mind. And this is where we are going to. But at the same time, once we understand this, it opens a new era in the world of the peace. With this, we can release so much energy that no weapon, present weapon made by man, will be able to stand the energy release at this level, be it electron or proton. So if I change my jacket doesn't disappear. It becomes a jacket of a aircraft carrier. The central depletes all energy from every element. Now you understand. We said when we put an item in our mouth, the minute it enters the mouth of the man, because of the Gans condition of the body of man, it starts behaving as a Gans and not as matter. So shall be the battleships. Go back 2-3 years ago. I gave a warning to the Israeli government. I feel sorry for those mothers that they never see their daughters who are in the submarines in the Persian Gulf. If anything released to damage the integrity of territory of Iran. This is the technology. This is not new, but for the first time we release it. In a way, when you see the Russian crafts flying over, they do nothing. They create a field, and as they flew out of it, the field surrounds and they move out of it and they release it. They become the trajectory. And in so many ways, as electron can control the size of the proton and its position, so can the craft. The new space technology needs this, because when we travel into space, we have to be to isolate. You travel in deep space, and as you are going through, if this is your spaceship, and as you're traveling in that direction, there are fields which you recognize through understanding of other teachings which you do in the future. The field plasma in this zone is, let's say, a virus like, let's say, HIV or another virus. What you need to go through it, that you can attract it or be affected by it. But in a way, by releasing yourself at higher speed in a different direction, you cluster it with your own system. You encapsulate it. Same time, you create a directional motion. You have to remember, in the plasma physics, in the space technology, the craft always is as bottom of, not in the present aircraft industry that we see tail, where the craft is at the front. These are the new knowledge. These are what we need to know, but we can use it for application and implication of peace on this planet. We can literally write off any present technology, because there is one factor, one big element in this, and that is the wish of the man is peace, and that peace carries the signature of this system. Which means that no harm shall be done. You can deliver a space system into any aircraft category. And then what happens? Then we need to understand Mr. Valentine, we have and will push, we ask you to leave. If this carries on, if you have a question, respect what the website managers are doing in the background. He is not Mr. Valentine Rosman. You're not official KF, and we will make a complaint for your withdrawal. If you come across a gentleman called Valentine Rosman, this is a fraud website. You work with us, you comply with the regulations and rules of the foundation. I'm getting notice in the background that you're pushing. You cannot do so. Please block. You can leave. If you follow the rest.
Well, Mark,
this is a common teaching ground, not for you to dictate what you want to do.
Go ahead.
Could you either go over speed over this, or just not present it again? Being asked not to present this.
Yeah.
Just skip over it.
Yeah, just skip over or whatever. Or we can go back and listen to what we already listened to.
This is John here again. Is this?
Go ahead, John.
Hello.
I think that was part of the recording.
Oh.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm just listening. Also, the principle of the bilocation.
I never heard of that. Enlighten us.
Well, bilocation is apparently what spiritual people have done in history, of being in two places at the same time.
This is not such a thing. We are talking about the structure of the plasma physics. You cannot be in two places. It's in one place on its own. How can it be in two places?
But you could regenerate a secondary neutron through the proton that's left back.
You could do, you can do, but it does not carry the same.
So it'll regenerate a center, and that center may be different.
It's the center, in a way, if you look at it, you are taking plasma, you allow it to centralize, and you take the strongest out. Again, you do the same filtering. You filter the strength, the higher strength. You can repeat and repeat and repeat till you reach the strength of the soul of, let's say, a galaxy. Then, if you put this new strength inside your cores, now you can travel at the strength of the galaxies to galaxies. This is what it means. In the future, when man understands this process of division and division, if you remember yesterday what we explained, or the day before, where there was the brain, and we said it creates fields, and the, what we call it, the brain part takes the weakest soul, the center stays, the strongest become the soul. It's the same process of the understanding further on. So if the man becomes more and more intelligent, that it can further push this to keep on picking up the best, the strongest, then you reach a position that you can travel within the universes. This is a teaching for our souls in the dimension of the universe, or the universal community. There are those who have reached the level of new understanding, and this is the explanation of it, for them to go into another level. For man, there is a passage to go through. Don't forget, when you teach universal language, you teach knowledge of the universe, we teach the totality. When you teach in a conference, first class student, a professor, a mechanic, and an electrical engineer, all in there. Each one takes knowledge according to their understanding. What we explain, what it is here, is the trajectory of cleaning more and more. This I was explaining to Arman this morning. This is important because now you can clean out the new fuels for the space technology. This is what we need to do. This is what is essential for the expansion of the knowledge of the man. So what you do, you keep on considering this to be the new neutron. In the trajectory, you create, you filter. It's a plasma filtering. It's a new structure, higher strength, deeper and deeper. And then when you come to the point of the central field forces of the universe, that's the time when you go back to the universe. Now you understand the logical explanation, what I was teaching a couple of days ago, last week. Now you see the filtration.
So that's where he went back to the strength of the universe.
So Mark, if you could go back before this example of the power, you know, how you can, about the Russian planes and etc. If you can go back to the only the part that deals with the science of the split of the neutron to electron to and proton,
and play the whole thing.
That is, instead of this will be very difficult to translate in one weekend if it's too long. But if we go as far as the science without this explanation, this last one, and then translate that part only, because it has the science without the example of how to use that science.
So
does that make sense, Mark?
So you want me to go back to where I first started?
Where we started to the end, where before he brings this example. Then we can get the transcription of only that part that explains exact science, what happens with the split of the neutron, and then it's enough. Actually, it takes hours. I've done transcribing. 10 minutes takes 6 hours. So if you translate it, may take 20. And we can do that over one weekend. We don't want a whole hour.
We have an unstable set today. It's causing a problem. With both systems, we have unstable connection.
Right there. Here we go.
That man wasn't ready for decades and centuries, maybe it's not ready yet again. Well, what we explain, what I have explained is that.
Pardon, Rick, or was that you on the regular one again? I'll let it play.
Not me. I think it was just on the tape.
That the process of the division of the neutron, for the first time we can explain, that is the center of neutron itself. As you look at the structure of the cores, rotating cores, which they have a center, and the fields, and then you have the matter state or the gaseous state. As by rotation you create a center, the way we have seen and we explained in the structure of the soul of the man, in the brain of the man. Now we understand the center of the neutron is the same, and he has a center, where by the change of the fields in his environment, then the center divides, and the balance of the energy, what is left here, becomes the proton, and what is in the center is electron, with a higher power that it can carry on with its random motion. In fact, if we look, we understand the whole three are the same. In the life of the man, when the blood circulation, which is surrounding the brain of the man, changes through the misfunctioning or a stoppage of the heart, the environment changes and forces the release of the soul into a new dimension. So the creation of the soul and the division or the not the creation, the release of the soul from the central structure of the physicality of the man. The same way as a neutron division, which is electron and proton, is exactly the same. And then, as I explained, if you remember, some of us who did the test creating deliberately a center core, a second core, and a third core, or we had a center core created in the middle, we have found some of our cores have disappeared, or we have lost them, we cannot find them. They have gone through the same process, where the field forces in the surrounding has forced the trajectory process. So in all three, the creation of the release of the solar man and the division of the neutron, are in the same as with the cores, where we see the release of the inner core is all the same. Now we understand. But now once we understood this, and we can elevate the knowledge of the man, we can dictate on the direction of this trajectory, or on the direction of the release of what you call the electron. This gives man a new dimension in the world of physics, a new understanding, and this will be written in the books of physics as a new chapter, going further into the structure of the material, going further in the structure of the plasma technology. As I said, plasma technology is the next step after atomic and nuclear. Now we spoke with the fields, now we have to speak. When we say nuclear, it means we deal with the nucleus. Now we are going inside the nucleus, and we have parallels, so we can relate one to another. We can go from macro to micro. We can go from the brain of the man into the neutron structure and the man-made system, which confirms and complies with the same rules and regulations in the space. This is what, as I said, will shock the world of nuclear physics. For the first time, not only we say neutron is a plasma, electron is a plasma, proton is a plasma, we can show the birth of proton and electron. We can show how and where they are. In fact, it's the center itself which, due to the change in the surrounding, in the strength, gets released. And as it's released, trying to find a new balance, it creates a new life for itself. And this comes back to be the same. That's why we see not much change in the size of the electron, proton and neutron, because it's the center which has changed, and now this in rotation, and the forces from this have to create a second process, and this will go on. It's the same as the creation of life on this planet and the universe. But
is that where we wanted to transcribe up to?
I think just play a little bit more, then we see what happens. But when he moves from this explanation to what has been used about the planes, then you stop there.
Oh, okay.
You may have one minute left, but I don't know. That's what we are trying to find out.
If we understand and we can dictate the direction of the flow of the release of even our own spaceship within the plasma which we created, where we make our craft to be the center with the massive field forces around it and dictating the release direction, we can travel the spans of universe beyond imagination of the mind. And this is where we are going to. But at the same time, once we understand this, it opens a new era in the world of the peace. With this, we can release so much energy that no weapon, present weapon made by man, will.
You can finish about the weapon. We can release a lot of energy, but don't go to the example. Then
okay.
And there is more. After an hour and 30, I did the 1 hour 40, and there's quite a bit about it there. So I'm thinking that probably from 1 hour 35 minutes, he's also talking about it. So if you went 1 hour 35, 38, for sure, because the 140 minute, there's certainly some details.
Right, he explains the same thing again. So I'll just play a little bit, and then I'll go to 138.
Great idea.
We can listen to the other part, but let's decide on what we transcribe, what we translate. And we can't have more than 10 minutes would be so many hours when you're translating.
I think that's being done right now behind the scenes as we are transcribing it. People, Willie, I believe, and James are trying to put it together in a little packet.
And no worries. I'm going to make a clip of all this stuff into a separate sectioned out video that'll all be put together.
Yes, thank you very much. But remember, please, that some translation is automatic, and then you just correct. But some of our languages, we don't have any head start. We start from zero. Like there is no Google that will translate my language, for example. So I have to start from zero. Some languages will be very easy because you can put it in a system and it translates automatically, and then you can just correct. So with that in mind, we want just a few minutes that explain the science, and it's just about here or somewhere a little bit ahead.
Okay, I'll play a little bit ahead. We'll stop for our minute of soul silence.
Thank you.
And then we'll go to 1 hour and 38 minutes.
All right, thank you very much, man.
Able to stand the energy release at this level, be it electron or proton. So if I change my jacket doesn't disappear. It becomes a jacket of a aircraft carrier.
That's the example.
The central depletes all energy from every element.
Okay, so he made the aircraft carrier into its own little environment so that it'll be nice and peaceful. And now let's have a minute of silence and connect all our souls in the intention of really having world peace now, because we can.
I think that means the minute's up.
Okay.
Not sure where that came from. Okay, how shall we continue?
And believe it or not, we've never seen a prophet either.
This is where
we
Libby
have messengers, but not the prophet makers.
It might be, I know at 140 he definitely is, so, and he can say a lot in a few minutes, so maybe just bring it right to 139 something. 139.
Thank you very much, Mr.
How is the Polish community?
Growing.
Are you still teaching?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Share the knowledge of today with the people. Polish people are highly scientific.
Thank you indeed, yeah. I've got a question. That what actually you told us today is actually mind-blowing in a way. If we want to open up the soul fields and expose them outside our physical body structure, do we have to slow down the operation of the heart?
No.
No? Right. Okay.
But would you like to kill yourself physically?
No, that's why I'm asking.
So find a way.
Okay.
There is an easy way. There is an easy way.
Yes.
It says, I'm going to go back in another point. What do you do when you fall in love? I put it in a nutshell yesterday. You travel across the world, you do anything to be with your love. Once you fall in love through your heart with humanity and peace and whatever matter, you can bring your heart to be close to your soul. If you understand the meaning. And then you don't need to create a departure of the two, you still keep the totality. And whenever you come to the next dimension, you allow the heart to find the position of the new dimension. And then you carry on with the same. That's how we carry with life, space, and deep space, those who travel in this way. You have to go to an electron or whatever. You can use your heart, and when I say you fall in love, it means getting closer to beloved. And then, if the love of the man is the heart of the man, you can do the same with your heart, through with your soul. So you reduce the dimension of physical and the entity as a whole. You stay at the energy level, and this is how it works. Then you don't need to die.
Yeah, thank you very much. And then I've got another one, if I can, obviously.
Yes.
Can we recognize the building of structure around us, through our physical eyes? Can we recognize the shimmering and all this?
Yes, you can.
And
depends on the openness. Let me explain to you something. Yesterday I explained how the soul leaves the body of the man through the eye of the man. Because it's always focused on something. Have you noticed when you die, most of the time your eyes stay open? Why? Because it's the channel of the pathing of the soul. That's the way I'm going out, so I keep the doors open. One day man will learn. You don't shut the door and get out, do you?
no, not really. It's really
Now you understand. Maybe we solve another mystery of life. Those who we see with the shut eye, the soul has already left.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question? As I said, we don't need to stretch to 3 hours just to cover the 3 hours. We teach so much in depth, in actual fact, that is exhausting. In so many ways, we need to understand more, but we need to understand in depth. And if we understand in depth, the knowledge becomes sweet to absorb, to understand. And if you listen to today's teaching, the knowledge dispersed and dispensed with changes the history of man in so many ways in deep space. As I said, we do more and more. I'm teaching a number of people in such a way that we can produce spaceships beyond the imagination of man with the fuels which, in a way, in a nutshell, I've told the principle.
It doesn't seem to be what I've been recording at 1 hour. Are you just starting at 140? Because there is a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I think that we're confused about the days. This is July 12th.
Oh, I was thinking yesterday. Sorry, yesterday he did it.
Do you want to pull up yesterday's and play it?
I could try to do that, sure. I'm so sorry. I was thinking, that's not what I've been typing. Okay. that, or we can just know it's there, and we will synthesize them. And I hear what you're saying, Dr. Gatua, very clearly. This needs to be all the little nuggets, and that's why I was saying, although that was a very important nugget, the nugget about the neurons and the protons is essential for us to be able to pass forward. So excuse me for making that error, and yeah.
No problem. This is plasma. There is no error.
Thank you.
So we have learned something. But Flint said that he would make a cutting of this. This would really help. And for those who transcribed in English, if they could send this transcription, we would start this work right away. And then on Monday, perhaps we can show, perhaps we have put it in our websites or some place that we usually, I mean, those who like Facebook, put it in Facebook in their languages. Those who have different blogs, they could put it there too. And then when we discuss this in class and show, then people will definitely go back and learn from those websites, because everyone who listens to YouTube recordings, and if what we talk about will be recorded and available in YouTube, then this is a beginning. This is a very good beginning, where we have a few minutes, 6 minutes, in so many languages. And then we can develop in the future about how to take this even further, develop this even further. Thank you very much. I hope this is a good beginning, and I hope it will bring back Mr. Keshe on Monday. Thank you very much.
Gatwa?
Yes, please.
Jalal here.
Yes, Jalal.
Did you understand where is the proton and electron?
I understood. I have only one question in that process. When the electron creates new life, what does it become? And the simple answer looks like it will become another neutron. And the process continues.
Can I explain?
But I don't know whether in that process of becoming another neutron, whether it becomes a proton first and then becomes a neutron, or whether it's just immediate.
Can I explain?
Please, I have a question, but that cannot stop us from translating.
Okay, can I explain to you?
Your question is well taken. Thank you.
Okay, can I explain to you if I understand it well?
Sure.
Okay, your body is...
Please draw it so that we can see.
I cannot, because I am not with the keyboard.
Okay, thank you.
Just today I'm not with the keyboard. But look, it's very simple. Your body is proton, and the electron here is your soul. What the electron gain from knowledge, that means what your soul gain from knowledge, and then it will release itself. It can be when you die that the cage of the proton will break out and the electron will be free, but there is no what you call it, there is no seal, there is not seal, there is no aim, there is no way to go where it's supposed to go. Only what he gained from power, from the like electron. But if you decided as a human, if you elevate your soul, that means you give more power to your soul, that when it goes out from the body, it will create its own proton and electron in the same time.
Jalal, I think I understand that in regards to our soul, which are the seed of a new life. I understand that part. It's the division of neutron into proton and electron, and then what happens to that electron in respect of that division alone. About the soul, I understand.
But you didn't understand about the proton?
The proton and the electron, let's say, for example, if you take oxygen, how many protons it has and how many electrons? and how does that process continue with the electrons creating a new life?
Okay, the mother is,
well,
what?
the mother is always the neutron, but I only raise the question in respect to the 6 minutes we consider for translation.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. But what I'm saying, that if we understand this process, we can teach it for the others in a simple way. You understand? I know what you are saying. You need.
Okay, go ahead and explain, please. Thank you.
Okay. The mother is a neutron. When it gains extra field, it will divide to proton and electron. That means the baby, what's coming when it's coming out, it is proton and electron. That means body and soul. When this baby is growing up, the soul, what he have, it will gain more power. You see where I'm going? So the neutron, the mother, it will stay mother, and it will have her proton and electron inside it. It will not be finished. Also, the new proton, and it have also electron inside it. When it gain power, and it will divide in the same thing.
I believe 2 electrons would come together and create a new soul. And when one electron is ejected, it takes all the power with it, or the strength, and it can generate a new shell.
But you will not have the 2 electrons together. You will not. You must have proton and electron. And if 2 electrons join together, and then will be 1 electron and 1 proton, because it must be like this.
Thank you very much, Lal, for explaining. I think I understood it. I understand it better now. The electron that creates a new life is like the soul, which is the seed of new creation.
Yeah.
Basically put. So that should be easily understood. And then let's go to the recording itself, because we need to know exactly what Flint will give us later, and the transcribed material together with that. And then we can go ahead this weekend. Let's agree on a strategy. So who is willing to translate, and into what languages? I will be translating into the core language. So others can offer to do that, so that we actually end up with a product on Monday.
I will translate it to Arabic when it's will be translated to English, and then I will translate it to Arabic.
Perfect. So others can offer, and let's do it, and then show it.
What I have.
So, okay. Mark, if you could send to Flint the exact timing.
Yeah, it's about
now. If you could send that, then perhaps he can send it to us later tonight, and then this work begins.
Yeah, it's right here for about 5 minutes.
Yeah, I got the time, so I'll get it.
Oh, that's perfect. So give it back to Rick to take it away. Go ahead, Rick, now.
Okay. Did we want to play that second, the one from the other video, to try to piece it together with this one, or are you just going to do this one?
Actually, we can play, but I think it's best to concentrate on one for the transcribing, for the translation, because it's the same thing anyway. He repeated what he had taught. But it's up to you. Thank you.
I'm just wondering if we would get something out of it. Usually he doesn't do things exactly the same, but
you have that one ready to play, Libby?
Sorry, I was trying to get to my microphone. I'm just getting it uploaded up. I thought I had it loaded up, but I've only got it in Amara. Hold on a second, if you'd like it.
Yeah, we got a bunch of open microphones. If people aren't talking, if they could mute their microphones, that would be good. Thank you. Thank you for the musical interlude, Mark.
Hello, may I say something? This is
Certainly.
Alberto again. In one of the private teachings, Mr. Keshe teaches us that the small is just like the big. Just a minute, I have the quote in front of me here. Everything in the small is the same as the big. All universes rotate within the unicos. And so do the galaxies, the solar systems, and the Earth due to the same effect. There is no difference, and this is the key phrase here. There is no difference between the structure of an atom with an electron and our universe with us in it. How do you like that?
Should I start sharing? Can everybody see it? Okay.
Yeah, maybe you could put it in theater mode if you have it there.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Technology, you can create any kind of hydrogen from the same setup. I explained this yesterday with the division of the protons and number of the neutrons. So in so many ways, in the heavy mass elements, the conversion of the proton due to the absorption of the radiation from all the neutrons and electrons, whatever they divide, and the protons, creates new neutrons. There is no other option. So in that process, we continuously produce neutron out of proton and proton out of neutron. And in that process, using and what we extract from the environment, we keep the stability. It's not that you put an electron in there from the beginning of the time, 1 million years ago, it's still the same proton. No, the plasma continues. This dynamic state is not a solid state. It absorbs energy, and this conversion of the neutron to proton and proton to neutron is continuous and absorbs the energy which comes in. You have to understand the totality. We say on Earth, the gravitational magnetic field of the Earth from gravitational magnetic field of the Sun creates residual fields. On Earth, we absorb it. So does the interaction of field of the electrons with the boundaries with other electrons get absorbed energy into the center of the nucleus. Where does it go? Unless adds to these parties inside, which is a proton and electron, neutron. So in any case, we never understood that the proton can go and be elevated to become a neutron, because all it needs is adding energy from outside the way it loses its gains. This is what I explained, the new science of plasma technology we start breaking through, and I said I start teaching from last week. The science, the physics of today is on the total fallacy which never understood, and it's been built on, and we have accepted it. We only accept one way, we never accept the other way, because then we have to find why. Now we understand why. The world of plasma physics opens up the whole new dimension in the world of science. And we have to understand the correct way, not again following the dogmas of before, just steadfast to what it is we've been told. For the first time today, at least you can say you've been present when it was announced that a proton can become a neutron, and you can see it very easily with an explanation. As the same as you can understand, a neutron divides itself to proton and electron out of the center mass, center plasmatic field of the same thing. Now for the first time we understand where the proton comes, where the electron comes from neutron. These have been the ambiguity which has been sitting with the old matter physics. In plasma physics we see it, we can do it. We just see it in a very simple way. What is your qualification, Rick?
That's at about 139, 30, 138 maybe, but what I showed you was from 139.40. You can see that it starts earlier. So I'll go research that some more, but that's what I wanted to share.
Yes, thank you very much, Liberty.
We are a team. We will get this done.
So the electron gets shot out from the neutron. It's just.
And that's that
released.
release. That's the release that we can learn how to control the destination and the distance and the strength of it.
Kind of like the big
So
whoosh instead of the big bang.
I was just about to say that, Flint, you beat me to it.
Perhaps, Rick, you could check with Mr. Keshe whether it's appropriate to translate this and spread it across the world, in that it was taught during a private teaching, but this was the blueprint for peace, for humanity. I don't know whether it's in private or public. So
they're both public.
Yeah, that was the Knowledge Seeker Workshop 180 from yesterday that Liberty just played. And then
yes, but what we had first was the blueprint.
Yes, and that's all public.
Okay, that's easy. Then.
Yeah, it's on the YouTube channel in a separate Blueprint for Peace for Humanity playlist. All the recordings are there since the end of June.
Okay, thank you very much. If it's public, then we can release it. I don't see any problem.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, all teachings from now until first week in August are public.
Perfect. Perhaps this will be a beginning of a, selection of nuggets that we can do over and over again, repeat until the end of August. Let's make this successful this weekend and see where we go from here. Thank you. And then, of course, you can teach your communities with the same translations, because it's already in your language. Thank you.
We are the plasma prospectors.
Need someone to go to the
nuggets.
Need someone to go to the physics department at MIT.
This is a surprise. They may be listening.
Well, someone was commenting that they had a discussion recently with one of the scientists from CERN, and trying to get him to understand about the soul of the electron, the soul of the proton, and so on. And the person from CERN, of course, was having a bit of a hard time with that. But on the other hand, they're all coming closer to that singularity, I guess you call it, as well. So eventually we'll all see eye to eye.
Hello, this is Nicholas. Can I say something here?
Sure, go ahead.
Just from listening to this as the last hour and a half or so, several things come up, several thoughts come up that we may contemplate. The one is really the nature of plasma. And since plasma is not a matter state, in a certain way, it doesn't exist. So actually, plasma itself is nothing in actuality. But what it is all things potentially. It comes out of that field of nothingness, if one wants to speak of it, where it is everything potentially. So what brings it then into a matter state? what directs this plasma, which has no good, no bad, no peace or not peace? It has nothing in it. What directs that? And that's a question. And then the other one is, how does the human being play into this? The human being, which is a part of creation, out of the rocks and the plants and the animals, and the human being then brings a element to it that is in no other parts of creation. And so somewhere in that, the human being plays into this dynamic that we're speaking of. And out of that is able to create a focus, is able to create thoughts, and create the nature in a certain way of reality, or the nature of what comes into a matter state through that consciousness and through those thoughts. And so this brings us back to the soul, because the soul has that borderline element of not being anything in a matter state, but in fact able to carry a certain amount of energy and identity to the entities that we are and to all that exists. So in looking at that and realizing that once this is set up, if you want to call it the Big Bang or whatnot, once this is set up, there's a flow between the plasma and the matter, and a flow that is continuous, a flow that we know whatever is created comes out of something. So what is it that creates this new electron and this new proton? It doesn't come out of nothing. It comes out of the plasma, but something is feeding it that gives it the ability. And then where does it go? What black hole, what does it go that it recycles? And so in this continuous flow of energy, I think there is something to be contemplated out of what Mr. Keshe is saying there, of what is created, how it is created, and how through our thoughts or our wishes and our focus, we can really direct the nature of the emotional state or the matter state or of reality itself. So those are just some thoughts that I put down in my notes as I've been listening to everyone. And I just wanted to say thank you so much. You are so close to my heart, and just this this love of life and humanity that we all and that you all bring. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts on that?
The first thought that comes to mind is that everything is plasma. Plasma is everything, and everything is plasma. So
even the thought of plasma?
Right,
even
they're all interconnected.
Yeah, so to say that something is nothing is really not within the definitions of the new plasma maggraphs technology, because everything is plasma.
But when you say nothing, when we say nothing, you could break it down into no thing. So it's not a thing in the way that we think of matter-based, particle-based stuff.
No, we're surrounded by matter everywhere and anywhere. See, matter has nothing to do with density. It has to do with plasma.
Well, and there's different kinds of matter.
Is it a matter of what you see is what you get?
No, matter, what we call matter is what we're attuned to.
Well, that's what I mean. If we happen to see, like I can look outside here, for example, and I can be focused on the trees. I see trees, 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 everything's green, trees. Or I can choose to focus beyond the trees. I see blue sky and just focus on the blue sky, and I see blue sky. Or I could choose to just look at the window, which is kind of dirty, and that's, maybe I should focus on that and wash the window and, you know, take care of that. So there's like 3 different dimensions of existence, or dimensions of perception.
And those are just with the visible light.
And that doesn't even include the hummingbird feeder. That's quite interesting, with the hummingbirds buzzing around, which is in between those dimensions I've already talked about. You know, and so there's all these levels of activity. And what do we choose to focus on? I didn't choose to focus on any of that in the last half hour. I've been focused on my monitor, which is on another dimension even closer to me and right in front of my face, basically. So, and then what about my attention going inward into the feelings, emotions, and other internal processes going on? So there's different perspectives, I guess, or levels that we can look at.
Well, all the things that you've just mentioned, I would say that they're all in the same dimension because you can see them.
Well, this is right. This is right. It's part of the, what you could say, phenomena. It's stuff that our senses tend to, you know, our eyes see, or my hand can touch the screen in front of me. It's the physicality senses, which are always actually once removed from the immediate moment. You know, it takes time for the light to go into my eyes and everything to register in the brain and so on. It's everything's once removed. It's buffered by our brain and its connection to all its sense organs and whatnot.
Kind of like the rut that we're in is just the visible light and the touchable matter.
Yeah, that's right. So you could say, and some do, that all this phenomena, you call it phenomena, the stuff you see in front of you, basically, anything that looks like an object or a piece of matter is an illusion. So you could say all phenomena is illusion.
Or it's just a piece of the reality.
You'd be surprised how many solid objects we walk through all the time without even knowing that they're there, just because they're in a different density. There's matter all around us.
Yeah.
What happens is it's like air is to us. We walk through the air and it moves out of the way because of our higher, I would call it, higher plasmatic field. Yes, field strength. Yeah. So the air moves out of the way, and the same thing happens with all this other matter that's around us. We're either below it or above it. We just can't see it.
Right. 99% of what's there is dark matter that we just haven't acknowledged before.
Yeah. And the soul, the gentleman was talking about the soul. Definition of the soul. What is the soul? Soul is our emotions. The soul is that beautiful, beautiful part which we're beginning to understand now as the free energy plasma, which is inside of the star formation, which is built by Cohen, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, and I'm missing one. Nitrogen, carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen.
Hydrogen.
Thank you. So that little free plasma that's inside that star formation is collecting energy, information. It's collecting our experiences. That's where our emotions live. That's our soul. And we're made of so many, an infinite number of these little things. And this is what we are. This is our emotion. That's our soul. It's amazing how much information that little free plasma, which is floating inside that tiny, tiny star formation, how much energy it commands. The smaller we get, the more we can affect the emotions. Look at the emotions. How many muscles does it take to express emotions? Let's say a woman wants to influence her husband, and she says, well, the only way I can do this is through my tears, so let me bring them up. And she starts working on her emotions from the inside out. The emotions come from that very, very small free plasma energy, which is working inside of our amino acid. But look at the tremendous amount of energy that little free plasma can create. It moves muscles, it brings out tears, it just moves everything. So if the bigger we want to affect, the smaller we have to go. Now, if we want to create a spaceship, but this is deviating from what the gentleman was talking about. If we want to create a big neutron in relationship to our bodies, then we're going to have to go to the smaller. We're going to have to go smaller than the electron. An electron of an electron, if that even exists, I don't know. So the smaller we go, the more powerful our systems will be, because the smaller is what attracts the energy of the larger. I'm done.
Good one. Yeah, that's, I mean, look at nanotechnology. Look at how scientists have ignored the nano level of existence. They've skipped over it. They went from chemistry right down to the atomic and sort of forgot about nano for many decades until last decade or two. And all of a sudden, there's a $1 trillion industry in the whole nanotechnology business now.
Yeah, and hydrogen's the answer, right?
Well, what is the question? What is the question that hydrogen is the answer to?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The gentleman had several questions. I just can't remember them all.
Yeah, and I can't help but think that we looked down inside the atom and all we found was empty space, and there really is no particle. And maybe it's all, like he says, just a figment of our imagination, or a figment of the creator's imagination.
Oh, no. There's real stuff in there. It's just that we're not tuned to it. We can't see it.
We see the phenomena, which is the illusion part.
It's just like when the guys who lost the center sphere inside the reactors, they're spinning reactors. That center sphere went into a different dimension and it just shot away. It's still real. It's somewhere, but we can't see it anymore because it's switched directions. It's switched dimensions. Just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there.
But he already explained it. There is two kinds of spheres. The plastic one, it's dissolved in the big one. But that's why he said you need a glass structure sphere.
It's very interesting because the glass is made of silicon dioxide. It's a dioxide, and we're working with dioxides all the time. So it's, yeah, I believe that too.
He actually recommends ceramic, not glass.
Yes, that's right.
Ceramic.
Yeah.
But he also said
Glass
if
view, yeah.
glass, then the glass would not have disappeared like the plastic. The plastic disappeared in that the chemical bond of CH was broken. So it's infused, it's not disappeared, it's within. Only that it does, the boundaries broke.
I would like to ask Rick if he lost some spheres.
I've had some instances of things spinning away and whatnot, but I haven't had anything totally disappear. I've had things disappear into drawers and remote corners of my lab where I got so much stuff around that it's easy to lose things. But no, I haven't had actual disappearances that I can recall. Although, you know, the little, well, I can't say that because I had an experience today of a disappearance. You know, the video that I showed last time, I'll just get it up briefly here.
No, that was beautiful.
Okay, there it goes. Okay, let me just trying to find my video here. It's okay, I can do it this way. Okay, I'll just share. Shared the wrong one. Let's try it this way. There it is. And I'll put the sound on. There we go. Okay. So you should be able to see that there now. I'll just make it a bit larger. And you can see in this, before we even look at anything about it, whoops, just trying to get my live stream set up here. It's a little off. Just bear with me a second. All right, so okay. So what I was going to point out is you can see the bubble in the middle, but not the center of the globe here. I don't know if you can see my pointer, my mouse, but you can well, I'll just play it and it'll zero in to where the tiny little globe of. So this is in the rotating sphere, and you can see the little ball in there. Okay, and I showed it through the video, as people remember that saw the video. And it was able to be suspended in there and so on. So today I went to fire up the sphere again and try to repeat the experiment. And the bubble had changed. It had virtually disappeared. And it became so tiny I had to use a laser in the dark to actually find it when it was spinning in the middle. So somehow that little bubble ended up absorbing itself into the GANS water, and was harder to manifest the second time around. Mr. Keshe mentioned putting additional GANs in order to make the bubble bigger. So that's something I need to experiment with to see how the effect of the GANs is with the bubble. One thing for sure that's interesting that's going on there now is when the RPM is changed, like right there, the bubble actually vibrates like crazy. I'll just turn the sound up a little bit, and it's a bit annoying, but you can hear that when there's a difference in RPM, the bubble bounces around like crazy, and then things stabilize shortly after that, and the bubble is completely, very much stable, like completely positive positioning at this point. So let's see if we can catch it here. Here, I increase the RPM, you see the shaking of the bubble, now it stabilizes again. My camera is kind of shaky there, but here, see? And then it stabilizes again. And when it's stable, it's really stable. I really like this shot with the sphere in between the GANS rings. You can see the very light GANS rings. Well, it's not much GANS in that GANS water, but you can definitely see the rings in there and how the ball is suspended in between. There's got to be some applications for that we can work with. For example, what if that ball was deliberately made out of deuterium gas or some other material, some other plasma gas? That would be interesting.
You know, Rick, it's look like this orbs, what we see in the sometimes in YouTube's and all these things. It's the same thing.
The orbs, you say? Is that what you said? The orbs,
Yeah,
like?
yeah.
Yeah.
The orbs.
Oh, yeah.
It's beautiful.
Okay, so we should probably wrap things up here soon. Are there any last comments? I see this comment from Bernard's in the chat that I wanted to say. It's from an hour or so ago, but is the neutron the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit? That's an interesting analogy as well.
I'd say yes, it is, and so are you.
And maybe it's not an analogy, but closer to the truth than the illusion that we see as our as the phenomena in the world that we look at, take for granted that is real. You know, we look at the surfaces that are in front of us, for example, the table that I see here, or the notepad, or whatever, and we assume they're solid and very real. But as we know, with electron microscopes and that kind of thing, you get right down to the atomic level, and all of a sudden the whole thing opens up, and the closer you get to the atom, the more it opens up, and you find out it's mostly space, and there's only a little bit of atom, and the atoms are way far apart when you're looking at it on that really atomic kind of level. Say it's like it's like one one atom would be in one place and one would be a couple of kilometers away if you were looking at it at that level. And it would just be space in between. But yet the field forces are influencing, the plasma of these things are influencing each other. Go ahead.
Those atoms that we see with our old-time science instruments are only those that have balanced plasma magraphs from the sun, because those have balanced out to where they are at our level now. We can see them. But what about all the millions and billions and who knows what other large numbers are out there between those two atoms? We just don't have the tools to see them.
Good point. And there is no empty space anyways, anywhere in the universe, because as Mr. Keshe said, even if there's only one hydrogen atom in a cubic meter, which scientists say there's at least a few hydrogen atoms in every cubic meter of the vacuum of space, then even one hydrogen atom in a cubic meter, the fields from that hydrogen atom in that vacuum condition will extend out for that full cubic meter. So then in effect, all the hydrogen atoms of the universe are connected together through their fields, even in the vacuum of space.
Fascinating, isn't it?
Okay, I think maybe we can wrap things up here. Is there any last final comments? Anyone has been, there's probably a few questions we haven't asked and so on, but
I have a question, if I may ask, and that this is out of not knowing my physics at all. Is there always only one electron per neutron? Or are there potential for more than one electron per neutron?
Just one.
Thank you. And then each element has specific amount of protons versus the electron, is that correct?
Yeah, and usually the electrons equal the protons, but not always. You can have an ion.
Okay, I guess I have some further study to do on that. But
well, yeah, the element has got balanced charges, basically. That's just like what Mark just said. Otherwise, it would be an ion with a charge, a plus or a minus charge. It would have a plus charge if it is missing an electron. And it would have a minus charge if it's gained an electron.
That ion interaction is the interaction between that atom and the one next door. That's why they united chemically.
But do you need this old science now, Libby?
no, I'm just trying to grasp if everything is a neutron or has the potential to become a neutron, and there's only one electron per neutron.
And it's one electron for each proton.
For each proton. Well, okay, see, that doesn't make sense.
When the neutron degenerates, it transforms itself into a proton and an electron.
But within the neutron exists a proton and electron, or is thank you for, maybe, I hope I'm not adding confusion here. I just want clarity to try to understand some very basics. So
I think it's sort of like the neutron. If that was the mother, then the electron is the child that gets ejected, you might say. And then the neutron becomes a proton instead of a neutron. It's and the proton and electron is like the mother and child. The mother before the child is born is not the mother actually until the child is born. If you think about it, or I guess still
Yes.
the mother before the child's born, but the child has to be there. And that's what we're saying, is that electron has the potential, it's the center of the neutron, but it has the potential of splitting out, of being spit out, sort of. And that's when it becomes, the neutron becomes a proton. What's left of the neutron becomes the proton, which is slightly smaller than the neutron, but not that much smaller. And then with electron, which is much smaller, it still has this enormous potential and charge.
Yeah, they interact electrostatically.
So we
You'd
really
say
are
that,
talking.
or magnetically, in the sense of.
So we're talking
Keshe
fields.
technology.
This is not matter based.
Well, that's the thing.
all
When
the
you look
fields,
at,
right?
that's what Mr. Keshe said in his original videos many years ago, when you zero right down on the electron or the proton or the neutron, it's fields. It's magnetic, rotating, tied up fields. It's all fields, fields, fields. That's why the idea or the phenomena of seeing matter is an illusion. There is no matter. It is a bunch of maggrav fields. It's all fields, fields, fields. Rather, if we're seeing matter, then we're seeing an illusion. And we're, due to our conditioning and due to the effects of gravity and atmospheric effects and conditioning of our being brought up and environment and everything, then we believe, most of us believe, not all of us, but most of us believe that the matter in front of us is very real. When that bus is bearing down on you, if you pretty much know if you don't move, you're going to get hit by the bus, right? So this is the thing about, it's an illusion, but at the same time, we have to behave as if it's real because there are fields involved. And when the fields interact with our fields, there are real repercussions. In spite of the matter or the illusion of the phenomena of the matter not being real, we still have to behave as if real. Otherwise, we get run over by the bus.
Rick?
I don't know if that made sense. It gets a bit out there.
Yeah, it makes sense. But the bus is only going to be real until you can elevate your soul. And by that, I mean, if we can elevate the energy content of that free plasma which lies within the star formation of our amino acid, then we can walk through walls. The bus is coming. It's not even there because we're not there. We're above it. The bus is, all the molecules of the bus are going to go around us because we will push them aside with the strength of our gravitational magnetic fields.
Yes, that is true. Hard to put into practice, though.
Well,
we got to keep on trying.
And don't practice with buses. That's very bad
Not unless you're sure.
Unless you're very sure, because otherwise you only get one chance at that one.
There are some videos on the net where you see supposed accidents, and suddenly something crops up and displaces the person or thing, and the accident doesn't occur.
Mm-hmm.
We've also got to remember the structure of light. What we see belongs to the field that's hitting our eye.
That's right. Which is how much of the electromagnetic spectrum? 0.00001%, perhaps, something like that. And we rely so much on that 0.00001% as being so real and so important to us.
Right, because that's what heretofore hit us.
That's the thing about it. But what if we were able to retract from all that and see what's really there? Might be a little overwhelming, perhaps. Maybe that's why we only see in that narrow spectrum. It'd be too much to see it all at once.
Yeah, and we can see more. We just have been trained not to.
And I think we're learning as a species to see more. I think we will learn to see perhaps into the ultraviolet or infrared ranges as we go on here, or other ranges, other dimensions. But for today, for now, this immediate moment, I think it's time to close our show. It's been great. I didn't think we'd have enough to talk about for 3 hours here, but we certainly did. And I think we have enough to keep going, even if Mr. Keshe didn't show up on Monday, which I'm quite sure he will. But let's all just keep in our hearts or our minds, whichever you prefer, to keep the idea of peace and the idea of paying back in some way, or generating some good fields out there to help others and to help us progress on this path.
Right. Empower the peace by sharing the knowledge.
Right on. That's right. Okay, so I guess that'll be it for today, unless there's any last minute announcements that anybody has that I've forgotten about. Otherwise, we'll meet on Monday at 10 a.m. as usual for another Blueprint for Peace for Humanity. This has been day 9, the afternoon session for Friday, July 14th, 2017. Thanks everybody for attending. Very good conversation here, and appreciate all your presence. Okay, we'll end the live stream.
Thank you, Rick.